What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to do a 351 or 302 engine swap in your new Edge Mustang. Later on in the video I'll also do a build breakdown of my car. So if you're interested to hear and see what mods I've done specifically to this car, stick around to the end of the video and I'll talk about that too. But to get started, let's talk about what you need to get the engine in the car. So as you guys may know, a 94 and 95, SN95, they came with a 302. So all you need to do to get the engine in the new Edge chassis is to use a K-member from a 94-95 Mustang GT. To get the transmission in the car, I did the swap with a manual transmission, so I can't talk to the automatic guys. You'll have to figure out how to get the automatic transmission in there yourself. But for the manual transmission for a T5, all you need is the bell housing from a 94-95 Mustang GT. You specifically need the 94-95 302 bell housing because these, the new Edge and the SN95 are a little bit longer, and the input shaft is like an inch and a quarter longer than a Fox Body's T5 transmission. So really you need just 94-95 Mustang parts to get the swap done in a new Edge. And as far as cross member for the manual transmission, you can use the same one that's already in the new Edge, or you can use one from a 94-95. They're the same, and they go in the same place, so that won't be an issue. I used stock 94 F250 rubber engine mounts, and I was able to clear under the stock hood, but I had to run the smallest air filter I could find. So that's the catch-22. If you're using a stock hood, you're either going to have to run no air filter, or you're going to have to run the smallest one you can find. So keep in mind, I'm talking about fitment under the hood using carbureted parts. So with that said, now let's start talking about some fitment issues that you guys are going to run into while you're doing your swap. Next would be exhaust. I'm just using some no-name shorty headers off eBay. This car, I've done GT40P cylinder heads, and now it has Windsor Junior cylinder heads. I've used the same shorty exhaust manifolds, and I've really had no clearance issues. It gets pretty tight to the steering shaft on this side, but besides that, I haven't had any clearance issues with my exhaust. I do know that some guys run long tube headers with the stock K-member. All I can say is you're going to have to do a lot of massaging to your long tube headers if you want to run them with the stock K-member. It might be in your best interest to get a tubular K-member if you want to run long tubes doing this swap in the new Edge Mustang. So besides that, I was able to use the stock steering rack. I was able to use anything coolant related. I was able to use stock radiator and all that stuff. The only thing that you need to change is you're going to need an electric cooling fan alternator, a Tough Stuff one-wire alternator, but you can use the stock alternator if you keep your instrument panel cluster. If you remove your instrument panel cluster, all you need to do is add I think it's 500 ohm resistor to your excitation circuit, and you'll be able to use your stock alternator. The reason for that being is the battery light on your dash, that has a resistance, and if you take the instrument panel out, you need to put a resistor in for your stock alternator to work. So next would be fuel. I told you guys I went the carbureted route, honestly strictly just for saving some money. I did this swap originally when I was in college, and I was a broke college kid, so I decided to save some money and go carbureted. If you go carbureted, all you got to do is switch to a low pressure fuel pump and obviously a regulator to accommodate the low pressure fuel system. Then next would be ignition. I ended up doing everything MSD. So I have the MSD distributor, and then I'm running the MSD 6A Plus box, but I've also ran an MSD 6AL. It doesn't matter what ignition controller you choose to use, you're just going to need one when you do this swap. So that's the basics to do the engine swap. It's really not as hard as you'd think. If you're interested in doing this swap, I encourage you to do it. It's really not that hard. If you guys are wondering about price, but it's relatively budget friendly. I mean, at the end of the day, you still need an engine, transmission, and supporting parts to make the engine run. So it's going to be around the $5-6 grand mark, unless you really cut some corners. So expect like $5 to $7 grand to get the swap done. Unless you just do junkyard everything, then it'll be way cheaper for you. That price I'm giving you is including building the engine, along with some other goodies like upgraded radiator, fuel system overhaul, stuff like that. If you're using a T5 transmission and you already have a Ford 8.8 rear end, you can use stock drive shaft. It's the exact same. Also guys, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. It helps the channel out. All right, so now let's do the build breakdown and talk about the mods that I did to my car. Let's start off with the engine. So the 351 that I chose to use was the later 90s 351, and that's because the later 90s 351s are roller motors. And what that means is you get to use a hydraulic lifter for your camshaft that has a ball, a roller on it, which is a pretty good benefit because it opens up a lot more camshaft choices for you as far as like more radical lift and duration than what conventionally a flat tappet camshaft would have. So I chose to do a 90s 351. They're a little harder to find, but if you find one, it's worth it because you get to have a roller motor. All right, so let me explain this. This car has had 3 351s, so I'm just going to talk about its current setup, but all I'll say is I've done stock 351s, stock crank, stock piston, stock rods. That was all fun. I've done GT40P heads. And with that said, I highly recommend that you guys do an aftermarket cylinder head when you're building your 351, because any Ford cylinder head does not flow enough air. It chokes these engines out. If you're on a budget, the GT40Ps will get you by. It's fine. Just the engine's going to make like 280 horsepower. Don't expect anything over 300. So this current setup, I'm using Windsor Junior cylinder heads that are ported. And I'm running the Edelbrock RPM air gap intake dual plane. I cut the divider on the dual plane intake down a little bit, so I have a little bit of that single plane intake effect when I get to the higher RPM. That's kind of like a hot rod trick. Holley 750 double pumper carburetor. The camshaft is an F303 camshaft. That's an alphabet cam. The lift is 512 thousandths and duration is 226 for intake and exhaust. This current setup has Wiseco forged flat top pistons. It's got scat rods that are stock length. This is not stroked. And it has the stock crankshaft in it. So my bore it's bored 30 thousandths over, so it's still the 4-inch bore and the 3.5-inch stroke. I'm using the 351 swap oil pan that you can buy off late model restoration. I haven't had any clearance issues with that with the stock K-member. I'm using Bronco accessory drive for radiator, doing the SVE upgraded radiator. Just some eBay electric cooling fan. Clutch and pressure plate is the McLeod combo. If you're wondering what size, it's a 10.5-inch clutch and supporting flywheel pressure plate. Working our way back to the transmission, I've used a Tremec T5 transmission, and then I upgraded. The car currently has a TKO 600 Tremec transmission. So going to the back, it's the Ford 8.8, and I'm just using the 410 final drive Ford racing gear set. Nothing special about that. Suspension up front, I'm running the Strange adjustable struts and their coilover kit. Maximum Motorsports caster camber plates. And in the rear, I'm using at the SR V1 coilovers. Wheels are XXRs, 531s. It's 9.5 wide in the front, 11.5 wide in the rear. Offset is plus 20 ET. Tires up front 245 35 18, and the rear is 295 45 18. 3.5 inch cowl hood. Fuel system, like I already said, Holley 750 double pumper carburetor, and then I'm using the Holley blue fuel pump and the low pressure regulator that you can buy with the Holley blue fuel pump. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill setup for sure, with some extra little hot rod goodies like ported cylinder heads and stuff like that. All right, guys, that's it. Now you guys know what it takes to do a 351 or 302 swap in a new Edge Mustang, and you also know the build breakdown of the specific mods that I like and I put on this car. If you guys like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.